So a very good afternoon and a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm Richa Sachdeva and I've been associated with NBC Advisors Private Limited for more than 2 years now. Today's session is on regulatory aspects in Vietnam and India for investment in Vietnam, and the keynote speakers for today's session are Mr. Lang Huan Truong, President and CEO with Onkin Consulting Vietnam, who holds more than 10 years of experience in global key account management and retention and global expansion through strategic alliances and joint ventures. And we have Mr. Neeraj Bhagat, Director NBC Advisors Private Limited. He has a bank of rich experience of handling corporate affairs in different areas for more than 2 decades and has helped many organizations to set up business in India and operating it successfully. Before we start, I would like to mention that with a population of about 97 million, with ranking 13th in the world and third among ASEAN countries, Vietnam has enormous market potential to make any business investment a profitable one. And to talk about this in detail, I would request Truong Lang, David, we call him David, to take it up from here. So David, over to you now.
Richa, please unmute David.
Yes.
Yes. So you can start, David, now.
Yes. Thank you, Richard. Good afternoon, everyone. This is David Lang from Vietnam Consulting. I am very happy to be here to talk with you about Vietnam and the FDI opportunities we currently have for the foreign investors who want to venture into Vietnam. To start with, I would like to walk you through first about our company. Vietnam Kin, as an FDI-focused consulting firm, founded in 2009, Vietnam Kin Consulting is a multidisciplinary group of FDI-focused consulting firm aimed at facilitating intra-ASEAN investment and foreign direct investment into ASEAN, following our FDI intelligence approach. We do offer a unique one-stop solution catering to all professional and corporate needs, corporate services needs of domestic and foreign investors. And please take a look at some numbers, some figures about Vietnam Kin. We have more than 3,000 successful global consulting projects since 2009.
David, I think you can share the PPT, which is not visible now.
Sorry.
No problem.
Yes. So, so please take a look at the figures about Vietnam Kin. We have more than 3,000 successful global consulting projects since 2009. We have the number of countries we have business relationship with amount to 120 countries. And we are able to offer the services in more than 50 languages. We have the offices in 7 countries, especially in APAC countries. And the main part of our presentation include, the first one is to talk with you about Vietnam overview. The second one is the reasons why you should venture into Vietnam. And the third one is how to do business in Vietnam. To start with, please take a look at this slide regarding the Vietnam snapshot, in which you can see our country has a shape like the letter S. Yes, so the total population is 90 million and 97 million people. And the GDP per capita is $3,521 US. And the GDP growth, normally GDP growth is between 5 to 7%. But due to the pandemic crisis in 2020, we still have the positive GDP growth by 1.91% for 2020. And in Vietnam, the most developed cities are Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, Hải Phòng, Cần Thơ, and Da Nang in the north. So you can see in the map of Vietnam. So we have Hanoi capital is in the north, and Ho Chi Minh City is in the south. Vietnam can have offices in both cities, both largest cities. And the major FDI sectors we have is manufacturing and processing, real estate, construction. I will tell you more in later slides. In short, if we talk about foreign direct investment, the FDI inflow to Vietnam, I would like to say to you one important number, which is the total FDI capital into Vietnam in 2020, by end of 2020, is $28.5 billion US. And among which you can see the total registered capital by sectors here. Number one sector is the key sector for which attract the most FDI investment in Vietnam is the manufacturing and processing, which accounts for 49.1% and with $13.6 billion US in 2020. And then comes to electricity distribution with 5.1 billion, real estate activities 4.2 billion, wholesale and retail trade 1.6 billion. This is from our government statistics. And the top 10 countries attracted the most FDI investment by 2020. You can see here with Singapore as the first, the top country investor with 8.994 billion US dollar. And then South Korea and China, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Thailand, British Virgin Islands, the Netherlands, and the Cayman Islands. All of these countries are the top 10 countries which are already invested in Vietnam in 2020. So why should you venture into Vietnam? I would like to tell you a few reasons why Vietnam is the right destination for you as the foreign investors. The first reason I would like to emphasize here, Vietnam and India at the government level, they are pushing up the economic and investment ties. Both countries already work together, for the past decades, and evidenced by, so they try to attract the foreign direct investment into both countries. And in Vietnam, India has over 270 projects with a total investment which is nearly $2 billion US. This is by the end of 2020. And the key sectors that India, this is the opportunities for you as the Indian investor to Vietnam. The first one is manufacturing and processing. This is Vietnam is also a manufacturing base for a lot of foreign investors. And we have more than 400 industrial zones or parks in Vietnam nationwide, which offer you a lot of opportunities with the investment and the tax incentives. The second sector is renewable energy and mining. So this is also one of the key sectors which both governments are interested in, strengthening the investment ties between the two countries. The third one is automobile supporting industries, such as auto parts and appliances. The fourth one is agriculture. This is also very prevalent in Vietnam. So there are a bunch of opportunities in agriculture, especially agro processing, agricultural products here. And also we also attract the high-tech, attract the investment into the high-tech agriculture industry. The last but not least key sector in Vietnam is the garment and textile industry. As you already know, that garment and textile is very popular in Vietnam, and that is the reason why we already signed up the European Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, and in which garment and textile, it is also one of the prevailing industry which the foreign investors and Vietnamese investors can benefit from. And among the 270 projects, Indian investment project in Vietnam, you can see some notable projects, including the projects of Tata Group in the energy sector, in the agriculture sector, and also in the manufacturing sector. And other Indian, large corporations already have the presence in Vietnam. For example, Reliance Industries, Impex, JK Tires, Landmark Pharmaceuticals. So they are very actively investing in Vietnam. And of course, Vietnam and India are increasing the trade and relation. As you can see, for India, Vietnam is the 18th partner, the 18th trading partner globally. And for Vietnam, India is the 7th largest trading partner, the 7th largest source of import, and the 9th largest export market globally. One important reason why Vietnam is attractive to the foreign investors, That is because Vietnam entered into a lot of free trade agreements with many countries in the world. We have in total 12 free trade agreements which take effect. And these agreements, which Vietnamese traders and investors can take advantage from the tax tariffs and other benefits from the agreement with the major markets such as Japan, South Korea, Southeast Asia, and European Union. The most recent free trade agreement Vietnam entered into is the European Union Vietnam Free Trade Agreement. And some other compelling reasons to invest in Vietnam include Vietnam has a stable political system with our Vietnamese Communist Party as the only one party in Vietnam. The second is we have the favorable investment of policies. We have the regulations in place governing the tax incentives and investment incentives in Vietnam. So this is also something very favorable for the foreign investors when they want to venture into Vietnam, especially in the manufacturing and processing sectors and high-tech industries. Vietnam has a golden population structure with 97 million people, and among which 45% of the population are the working age, with a growing middle class income, and there's a rise in global ranking of Vietnam in the world. So what do you think about Vietnam? If you are interested, we are here. We are happy to assist you in your investment project here. So let me move on to the next part of my presentation. It is how to do business in Vietnam. To start first, we would like to share with you the forms of businesses which are prevalent in Vietnam for foreign investors. So foreign investors are permitted to establish the following types of forms of business in Vietnam. The first one is limited liability company, LLC. The second is joint stock company. The third one is branch office and representative office. The fourth one is a business corporation contract. This is one form of business of investment in Vietnam, in which the foreign investors doesn't need to set up a new entity in Vietnam. They rely on the local partner, and they will set up the business cooperation project with the local partner. And the last form of business is a public-private partnership contracts. The PPP, we have a separate law governing the public-private partnership contract. And depending on each conditional sectors, we have the foreign ownership restrictions depending on the sectors. And so my advice for you when you venture into Vietnam is we will check your business activities, whether or not it will belong to the conditional sectors or the prohibited sectors, to make sure that you are allowed to set up a company in Vietnam. So I would like to give you some examples of the conditional sectors, which include manufacturing and processing. Most sectors in the manufacturing and processing, like cosmetics, automotive, like other, auto parts and, computer parts, equipment and machinery. So depending on the the type of the products you will manufacture in Vietnam, there will be the conditions or statutory requirements for you to register. The second sector is real estate and construction. You need to apply different sub-licenses in order to run this business in Vietnam. The next one is energy. And for energy projects, normally you need to work with some government officers. We're talking with our good relationship with the authorities here. We'll be in a good position to help you to overcome any challenges. And the third conditional sectors I would like to mention here is retail distribution activities. In Vietnam, as you may know, the retail sector is very prevalent here with our growing population. And repairing activities is also among the conditional sectors. We have more than 263 conditional sectors as stipulated in our law on investment. And next is our prohibited sectors. In our law on investment, we also stipulate some prohibited sectors, including some human trafficking, trade in human tissue and body parts, human cloning, or the provision most recently is in our recent regulation, it is a provision of debt collection services, just to name a few. Now, I would like to move on to the important part, which is company incorporation process in Vietnam. And for most foreign investors, they are very new to this process, and they feel it very difficult to apply for company incorporation. I mentioned here 7 steps. The first one is to obtain the certificate of investment for your investment project. And for this part is more difficult, is the most difficult one when you apply for company incorporation here. And that's the reason why we guide you how to prepare the required documents for submission. The step 2 is to obtain the certificate of business registration. This is when you need to obtain the incorporation approval for your company. Step 3 is to register your stamp or seal in Vietnam. In Vietnam, making the stamp and for registration for official use is really important. Step 4 is to do the initial tax registration. And so we will help you to work with the tax authority to register, to obtain the tax code for your business and to pay for the business license fee. And step 5 is to open up the corporate bank accounts, includes the capital and payment bank account. Step 6, for some conditional businesses, which I mentioned earlier, you need to obtain the sub-licenses, or you need to meet or fulfill some statutory requirements, if it is the case. And the last but not least, step 7 is you need to make the capital contribution, because when you obtain the certificate of investment, you need to register your capital, which is something that you need to commit it. And then at this stage, you need to transfer the full registered capital to the newly established company in Vietnam. and how Vietnamese can help you. Let me walk you through the 5 phases and also tell you one prevalent success story of Vietnamese. And this is also a big name in India as well. However, the headquarters of the company is in the US, headquartered in California, USA. The name of the company I would like to share with you is a Concentric Cinex. That is one of the Fortune Global 500 corporation. And we knew them in 2016, and we did have them from 2017 when we had them venture into Vietnam and in Indonesia at the same time in April 2017. And the way that we have them is in 5 phases. Starting, the first one is a market readiness assistance, in which we have them to do some market assessment or validation. We have them with some, what we say, market readiness assistance activities, in which they need us to advise about the legal implication, the accounting and tax implication, the HR and labor implication. All of these factors, they need to make a good preparation before they really venture into Vietnam. And then afterwards, we help them with the initial setup and establishment of operation. This took them about 3 months to from the beginning to the end. It means that we need to fulfill the 7 steps of the process within 3 months. So we have them with company incorporation. Afterwards, we have them with the HR setup, because there are a lot of documents, a lot of things they need to prepare at this stage. And also accounting and tax initial setup, because Vietnamese accounting standards, VAS in Vietnam, is very different from US GAAP from their global system. So it took us a few months also to have them to do the accounting and tax initial setup. And also because they are a contact center, the BPO center. So we have them with the IT information system setup. We just provide some support when they have a need. They do have their transition team to support this. And after setup, we move on to the phase 3, which is transition assistance. And Concentric has from 6 to 9 months for transition period, in which they have the transition team. They bring the transition team from the regional office in India, Gurgaon, Bangalore, and Mumbai. So I had a chance to travel to India at that time, and I met the global leaders located in the regional office in India. And then we work with the transition team to help them to ensure the smooth transition period upon incorporation, including some support, for example, like HR mobility support. We have the other corporate services like trade and procurement consulting, because they need to procure a lot of products and services, and all other transition support. And then for phase number 4, which is now, they are growing in different geographies: Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. These are all the countries we are supporting them, for phase 4. And the phase 5, it is a business expansion or exit strategy. This is when the foreign investors consider whether or not they expand the project in the existing geographies or they want to exit the market. For Concentric, they are growing their markets they're growing their business in Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand. So we have a lot of other opportunities to partner with their business team in such a way that both organizations are trying to identify opportunities. And this is also how Betonkin build up the partnership with our client. That is the end of my presentation. I really hope that this will bring you some insights, some information on Vietnam and how to invest in Vietnam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, for giving us insights on this. And I would request Mr. Bhagat now to please take it forward.
Please allow me to share the screen.
So you have the right.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for participating. And as you heard from my friend David about the investment opportunities in Vietnam and how you can do business in Vietnam. So once you decide that you want to do business in Vietnam or any other foreign country, there are a host of regulations that are in India and that need to be complied with. And then only you can invest outside India. So when you feel that you want to invest outside India, you have to comply with overseas direct investment regulations, which popularly is called ODA regulations. And I will throw some light on the ODA regulations that are in place in India and that need to be complied before you can invest outside India. Now, what is an ODI? Suppose you want to open a 100% wholly owned subsidiary outside India, and you open a company outside India and you subscribe to the memorandum and articles of the foreign company. And then, when you make an investment outside India as a subscription to memorandum and articles, so that is called an ODI. Similarly, there could also be a case that you want to acquire a company from some existing shareholders with the purpose to manage the business over there. And when you have to make a payment to these existing shareholders of a foreign company, then also the ODI regulations come in place. And you have to ensure that you comply with all the regulations which are prescribed by the FEMA guidelines. Now, when the ODI investment has to be done, so it can be done under an automatic route, wherein you need an approval from RBI. We don't need an approval from RBI. There are a set of guidelines which need to be complied with. The documents need to be given to the banker. Banker will vet these documents. And after vetting, the banker will initiate a UIN number. The payment will be effected in next 2 or 3 days after generation of UIN number. There are a host of guidelines wherein you don't need an approval from you need an approval from RBI, and the documents have to be vetted by the banker. The banker will file documents with the RBI, and after vetting these documents, the RBI will give a permission, and then only the funds can be remitted outside India, and that comes under an approval route. You need an prior approval from RBI, then only the funds can be remitted. And besides that, there is a host of other activities also which are not permitted for investment outside India. And in these activities, the foreign investment is not allowed, and the Indian entity is not allowed to invest outside India. Now, what all type of entities they are allowed to invest outside India? It could be a normal private limited or a limited company. It could be a body under an act of parliament. It could be a registered partnership firm. You have to see that it's a registered partnership firm which is allowed. An unregistered partnership firm is not allowed to invest outside India. It is allowed to invest outside India only after getting an approval from RBI, and it's not allowed under an automatic route. Similarly, the LLP, which is also a very preferred form of entity for a lot of Indian corporates, that is also allowed to invest outside India. Then any other entity notified by the RBI, they're also allowed to invest outside India. Indian residents, as an individual or a proprietorship firm, they are allowed to invest outside India up to $250,000 US under an automatic route. And if you want to invest more than that, you have to seek an approval from RBI. Then only you can invest outside India. Now, there could be a case that Indian party has a joint venture with another Indian party or has a joint venture with a company outside India. So if there are two joint venture partners in India and they are making an investment outside India, so both these parties are collectively called joint Indian parties, and they have to ensure that all the compliances and all the regulations related to ODI are met by both the Indian parties to the joint venture, and they have to ensure that these compliances are in place for both these companies, and then only they are allowed to invest outside India. Now we'll see what all sectors they are allowed to invest outside India and what are the restrictions for each sector and how these restrictions can be met. So we'll see in the next coming slides. So as a thumb rule, all sectors are allowed except real estate and banking. For a real estate and banking, you need to have an approval from RBI. Then only you can invest outside India. Now, it's very interesting that the definition of real estate does not cover the construction development project. So if you intend to do the trading in real estate, wherein you want to buy the properties and sell the property, and the main object of the foreign company would just be to buy and sell the properties, then it is called a real estate. Then you need a approval from RBI. But if you want to buy the land outside India and construct and develop and then sell it in parts, then it is called a construction development project. It comes under an automatic route and you don't need approval from RBI in that case. Similarly, for the banking, any Indian corporate, they want to open a bank outside India, that is not allowed. Only the banks which are in existence in India, so they have to seek an approval from RBI. Then only they can open a bank outside India. Without that, they cannot open a bank. Similarly, if any Indian corporate wants to do business or offer financial products which are linked to INR, then also they have to seek an approval from RBI. Then only they can do these activities outside India. Now, for NBFC or companies into financial services sector, so they are allowed to invest outside India under an automatic route, but they also have to ensure that 4 more regulations in place, and they have to ensure that these regulations are complied by these NBFC activities in India. This NBFC must be a profit-making entity and must be having a profit for the last 3 years. They must have been registered as an NBFC in India. Then only they are allowed to do similar activities outside India. If they want to invest outside India and want to do NBFC activity outside India, you also have to ensure that they get a specific license from that country, from the government of that country. Then only they would be allowed to invest outside India. Similarly, they also have to ensure that they are complying with the prudential capital norms, which in India is 2 crore rupees. So if they have 2 crores of capital and they comply with the minimum capital adequacy norms, then also they are allowed to invest outside India. Now, a very important point, suppose an NBFC activity wants to do a non-NBFC business outside India, they also have to ensure that all these 4 additional compliances are complied by this NBFC company in India. So then only they would be allowed to invest in a non-NBFC business outside India. Now, some of the proposals which require an approval from RBI and which are under an approval route, the companies into energy and natural resources sector, if their network, if they want to invest more than the prescribed network, they need to have an approval from RBI. Similarly, the companies in the oil sector, if they want to invest into overseas in unincorporated bodies, again, they have to seek an approval from RBI, then only they can invest outside India. Similarly, ODI by the proprietorship concern and unregistered partnership firms, they also need to have an approval from RBI, then only they can invest. In case of proprietorship companies, if the investment is up to $250,000 US, then they don't need an approval from RBI. And beyond 250,000, they have to seek an approval from RBI, then only they can invest outside India. Similarly, corporate guarantee given by the Indian party to the second and the subsequent level of step-down subsidiary will require an approval from RBI. All other forms of guarantee, if it's not a corporate guarantee and the guarantee is up to first level, other corporate guarantee for all other forms of guarantee offered by the Indian party, which first and the subsequent level of SDS would also require an approval from RBI. Similarly, ODI with the registered trust, societies, the joint venture and the WOS outside India would also have an approval from RBI, then only the investment can be made outside India. Similarly, if there's a restructuring of the balance sheet of the joint venture or a wholly owned subsidiary, and it involves write-off of the capital and the receivable, then also you need to have an approval from RBI. Then only the investment outside India can be written off, and then that company can be closed outside India. Similarly, if you have exported some goods or services outside India, and these exports are not realized within 9 months, and then you want to capitalize these exports and want to hold the shares of the foreign company, then you need to have approval from RBI. If the exports are made and the capitalization is done within the due period of being received, then you don't need a permission. But permission is required if the capitalization is after the prescribed period of realization of the export proceeds. Similarly, now in some of the countries like US and Australia, you can open the companies without having a minimum paid up capital or with the zero capital. And to run the business, you need to send the funds from India to outside India. And for sending the funds without an equity participation, the funds can be sent as a loan or some other form. And then funds have to be sent without equity participation. Then also you need to have an approval from RBI, and the application has to be moved, and RBI on a case-to-case basis grants an approval. Then the funds can be remitted from India to outside India. Now we'll see what all quantum of investment is allowed outside India. What are the limits for each corporates? How much they can invest outside India. Now, before we see what all can be invested outside India, we'll see what all is counted as a amount of investment. So one, if the Indian company is investing into preference shares or equity shares of a company outside India, that is considered a financial commitment. That would be counted towards a quantum of investment that can be made outside India. Similarly, if you want to give a loan to a subsidiary outside India, so that will also be counted as a financial commitment. That will also be counted towards a quantum of investment that can be made outside India. 100% amount of guarantee, including corporate and the personal guarantee, and the guarantee issued by the resident bank on behalf of the Indian corporate would also be covered under financial commitment, and that would also be covered about the quantum and the amount of quantum would be computed based on the guarantee amount given by the Indian corporate or the Indian bank on behalf of the Indian corporate. Now there could be very, very interesting case. So if suppose you have been granted a project by a Vietnam company and they require a performance guarantee, if a performance guarantee is given by the Indian corporate, 50% of the performance guarantee would only be counted towards a financial commitment, not the 100% as in the case of other guarantees. So in crux, the financial commitment, 400 times of the net worth of the Indian corporate can be invested outside India, but that does not include the foreign currency which is lying in the EFC account, which is an exchange under foreign currency account. Amount lying in that can be used for making a remittance outside India. Similarly, the foreign currency made out of the ADR, GDR proceeds can also be used for making remittance outside India. So in crux, 4 times of the net worth in India, balance lying in EFC account, and the proceeds of ADR, GDR can be used to make a payment outside India for investment as an ODI foreign country. Now I'll throw some light on the loans and guarantees. So if you have equity participation outside India, then the loans can be granted to the subsidiary company, but that would be under an automatic route. But if you have a company outside India without a equity participation, then you need to seek an approval from RBI, then only the money can be remitted as a loan to a subsidiary company outside India. And as far as the loans, the guarantees are concerned, the Indian corporates, they can give a guarantee to the subsidiary company. Similarly, the group company or the promoters, they can also give a guarantee to the subsidiary company outside India. Similarly, if the banks on behalf of the Indian corporate, they can also give a guarantee to the company outside India, which is being promoted by the Indian corporate. And it's very important to know that all guarantees should be time bound and should not be an open bound. And the amount and the period of guarantee should be specified in the guarantee document, which should be given by the Indian corporate, the foreign subsidiary. Now, besides the compliances and the guidelines which have been mentioned in the previous slides, there are 4 additional guidelines that have to be complied with by all the corporates which seek to invest outside India. Now, if the investment is more than $1 billion in a year, then you have to have an approval from RBI. Then only the investment more than $1 million can be made by Indian company to the subsidiary outside India. Now the company which is being incorporated by the Indian corporate outside India, so that should indulge only in the bona fide activities which are allowed as per the laws of the foreign country. It should not deal in any illegal activity which is not allowed as per the laws of the foreign country. Similarly, the Indian party should not be on the question list of RBI. So which question list of or investigation by the enforcement agencies, which include the RBI, CBI, and Enforcement Directorate. Very important point to be noted is that if there are 2 joint venture partners in India and they are investing collectively outside India, and if both these parties are banking with separate banks, they have to ensure that they bank with a single bank and with a single branch, and then only the banker will remit the payments outside India. The purpose of this is to that the UN number generated for any outward remittance would be one, and all would be monitored by the RBI through AD Bank. So that is why there is also a regulation that if there are two joint venture partners, all the payment should be made from one bank and one branch of the AD Bank, not from the multiple banks. Now, since you already heard that what all are the regulations, if at any point of time Indian corporate is not meeting the regulations, then they can approach the RBI and seek an approval from RBI, and RBI on a case-to-case basis will see whether the approval has to be granted or not. And generally, while granting an approval, RBI will see whether this project would have a financial viability, whether it's going to make any external trade, benefit to the external trade. The company which will execute this project has a financial standing and an expertise. So if all these conditions are met, then generally RBI grants an approval from case-to-case basis, and post that the investment can be made outside India. Now we see what all funds can be used in India for making remittance outside India. Market purchase, you can go to the banker, you can ask the exchange rate, the rupees can be converted into US dollars or other foreign currency, and the funds can be remitted outside India. Then the swap of shares, a very important point, swap of shares. Now there could also be a case that you want to acquire the shares of a foreign company, and foreign company, instead of receiving the funds, wants to acquire the shares of the Indian company, they want to become the part owner of the Indian shares. So that is also allowed, the swap of shares is also allowed. But the only condition is that the valuation of the foreign company has to be made by the merchant banker in India or outside India. That valuation report has to be given while making a remittance outside India. Similarly, the capitalization of exports, if the exports are made and they are not realized within the due dates of the realization of exports, then also they can be used for acquiring the shares of the foreign company, and that will also come under ODI regulations. Then in exchange of an ADR or GDR issues, then of course, that can also be covered under ODI regulation. Balances held in EFC account, the balances can be used for making a remittance outside India. The proceeds of an ADR and GDR issue can also be used for making an ODI outside India. That investment can also be done after complying with the ODI regulations. Now I will throw some light on step-down subsidiaries, whether they are allowed or not. Now, as per the law, there is no restriction on step-down subsidiary if there are overall limits of an automatic route, if the activities of the foreign subsidiary are within the legal purview of the country where the step-down subsidiary has to be incorporated. There is no bar on opening step-down subsidiary. Similarly, if you have a subsidiary outside India, say in Vietnam, and you want to further own a step-down subsidiary, and if the step-down subsidiary wants to do a financial services activity, you have to ensure that all the guidelines relating to financial services activities are also met by the step-down subsidiary, second stage step-down subsidiary, and that needs to be complied and reported to the RBI on a timely basis. What generally is not allowed, now suppose you have a subsidiary in Vietnam, and that Vietnam subsidiary wants to open a subsidiary further in India, that is not allowed as a general condition. But if there's a business need, or if there's a that will help in the external trade between India and Vietnam, then on a case-to-case basis, that can be applied with the RBI, and RBI on a case-to-case basis may grant an approval. Post that, you can open a step-down subsidiary in India as well. Now, there could be cases wherein an individual has a relative or a friend outside India, and is holding or owning a shares in a particular company. So if that individual outside India who's owning a company and holding the shares, they want to give the shares to you, and that person dies, and you inherit these shares. So inheritance or a gift of these shares is allowed, and you don't need a permission from RBI, and that is also allowed under the general permission of ODI regulations. Now there could be a condition that you are an employee of a company in India, which is a subsidiary of a foreign company, and as per the regulations, the employee is allotted ESOP shares under ESOP of an Indian subsidiary or of a parent company. So Indian employee is allowed to hold the shares of the parent company, and this is allowed as per the general regulations. We have to intimate, the employee has to intimate within 30 days that shares of the foreign company have been allotted to him under ESOP policy. That is allowed as per the general regulations of the ODI. Now we'll discuss some annual compliances. Once you have made the investment outside India, what all compliances have to be done in India. Now on an initial investment, once you do the initial investment, you have to fill up the form ODI. Also, you have to give a valuation report of the foreign company. You have to give the board valuation of the Indian company. You have to give form A2. You have to give form ODI. So once all these documents are given to the banker will vet these documents, generate a UIN number, then affect the remittance. Now, on a subsequent investment, once you have already invested outside India and you want to invest more money in that foreign subsidiary, similar set of documents have to be given to the banker, and banker will do the necessary vetting and allow you the remittance to be made. You also have to ensure that when the investment is made outside India, the share certificates in respect of foreign investment are brought in India within 6 months of the remittance, and the proof of that should be given to the ID banker. That is also a requirement of the law. Similarly, if you have any dividend, fee for technical services or royalty, which is due from the foreign subsidiary, that should also be brought in within 60 days of that becoming due outside India. Now I'll throw some light on the annual filings. Once you have a subsidiary outside India and the initial compliances have been done, you have to ensure that all the annual filings related, which is an APR, annual performance report, has to be given to the AD banker before 31st of December each year. And along with that APR, you also have to give an audited accounts of the foreign company. And if the laws of the country says that the audited accounts are not required and audit is not required, then you can give unaudited accounts duly certified by statutory auditor of the Indian company and duly approved by the board of directors of the Indian company. And that will also comply with the law of the land here in India. And they need to be submitted to the RBI, so to the ID banker, and which in turn will submit to the RBI, and that will also comply with the law of the land. Besides that, you also have to ensure that an FLA, a foreign liabilities and asset return, has to be filed by the Indian corporate before 15 July, which will show the performance of the foreign company, and that needs to be submitted online to the RBI. That has to be submitted before 15th of July. Now, this is the prescribed format. If there is a ESOP that has been allotted by a employee in India, this is a format of that reporting that needs to be done. It's an XRA, and it has to be submitted within 30 days of shares being allotted to the Indian employee. Thank you. Thanks for your time. If you have any questions for me, David, we'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, speakers, for sharing these details with us. We have a few questions from the participants. We have questions from Mr. Sushil Tanwar, and David, I would like to request you to please answer that for him.
Yes.
So you want me to read out the question for you? So the first one goes, why Vietnam is becoming a strategic choice and for what products and services?
Yes. Thank you for your question.
I'm so sorry. Let me just allow Mr. Tanwar to speak. He can, directly talk to you. 1 second.
Yes, sure.
Okay, I think he's left.
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. All right.
No, thanks, Richa. David, hope you can hear me as well. I think,
yes.
Yeah, it's wonderful to meet you. I think Richa has already asked the question, so if you could help understanding the question, that would be great.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Tanwar, for your question. Like I said in my presentation, Vietnam is a strategic choice because Vietnam is among ASEAN, the Southeast Asian countries. And if you want to venture into Southeast Asia, Vietnam is also the gateway because Vietnam is situated in the very strategic geography, in a geographic location in the region. And also why Vietnam is strategic because we sign a lot of free trade agreements with a lot of countries, and which you can benefit from in respect of the tax tariffs and other benefits for the foreign investment projects. Yeah. and what products and services are prevalent here for the for Indian investors. I must say that you can think about agricultural products, because I do believe that India and Vietnam have I think that have a good yeah, have similarities in terms of the agriculture, and we both countries can also, for example, Vietnam have a lot of a lot of agricultural products, agro processing. This is also something that we are attracting the foreign investor to invest into Vietnam, and also if you can think about other things, for example, manufacturing and processing for some sectors that you can work here. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, no, thanks, David. I don't know, Richa, if you want me to keep going ahead or do you want to ask question? I'm fine either way.
Mr. Tanvi, you can go ahead. You can directly speak to him.
All right. Now just wanted to follow your process. Yeah, David, so I had a couple of more questions. I think during your presentation, you already answered the question number 2 about the regulatory environment of Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you that again. What
Yes.
I'll be probably interested to know more about is, I think different type of companies, entities that you also spoken about. What I'm curious to know is what are the few pros and cons of these different type of companies in Vietnam? So, for example, you were talking about the branch office and the rep office. So, what kind of business a branch office is more suitable as compared to an LLC?
Sure.
If you could help us understand that, and also from the perspective of scaling up an organization, I mean, if the business is small, from the size of the perspective of a business, which particular entity is more suitable? Right? So these
Sure.
kind of, if you can provide some insight into it, that will be awesome.
Yes, thanks. So regarding the form of business or the types of entities here, what I mentioned in the presentation is include the limited liability company, which is the most simple form of business for the foreign investors. We have one member limited liability company if you have only one shareholder, and we have 2 or more member limited liability company if you have 2 or more members or shareholders. So this is the most simple, because in respect of the corporate governance rules in Vietnam, it will be very simple to manage for such a kind of entities. If you are a foreign trader, you want to do trading in Vietnam, you also can consider the branch office or representative office, but with representative office is more popular here, and this is only for those who want to do the promotion, market promotion, market research, or to do some business development when you set up the representative office in Vietnam without any revenue generation activities. And also I would like to give you some other ideas. For example, like business cooperation contract, BCC, can be a form that you think maybe you are not ready to set up a new entity in Vietnam. You just look for a local partner who agree to cooperate with you, and then you sign the business cooperation contract with the partner, and then based on which you can run the business with the partner without setting up a new entity here. And BCC will also be workable for a short term, for example, 6 months or 1 year. I hope this is helpful for you.
Yeah, no, this gives me a good flavor of understanding it better. That's very useful, David. Thank you very much. I think the last question which I got on my list is, so what are the different channels of investment if we have to invest in Vietnam?
What do you mean by the channels of investment here?
Yeah, so channels of investment probably would mean, I mean, very similar to what Neeraj was talking about from the India perspective. In few investment opportunities, there could be an automatic route versus a joint venture, automatic route versus approval route. Those sort of things, because there are certain
Mhm,
activities which fall within the automatic route, while
mhm.
for few other activities which require certain approval. What are the different channels of investment? I would also mean that where can we invest directly vis-a-vis in what kind of investment do we need some sort of handholding from our JV or the
Mhm.
local partner as well.
Yes. Mhm. So depending on the business activities that you want to do in Vietnam, but for most general business, you are allowed to set up a wholly foreign-owned enterprise in Vietnam. So without doing a JV with any local partner, uh, some traditional businesses require the joint venture. For example, like financial services, for example, yeah, or you want to set up a travel company in Vietnam, or some other business activities in the healthcare sector. Yes. And second point is that it depends on your business requirement. If you want to cooperate with a local partner in Vietnam, the joint venture company is also a very popular form of business here. And for the making a joint venture, we advise you to set up like a two-member limited liability company, LLC. And then these are two-member between you and also your local partner in Vietnam. So it will be much easier to manage. And also regarding the investment here, we do not have any minimum capital requirement in Vietnam by law. However, in prevalent practice, the licensing authority will also check about the financial capability of the foreign investors. So you need to submit the investment proposal to justify that the project is feasible and you have the financial capability to finance the project. So depending on the scope of the project, we will advise you what is the capital, what the capital which is feasible, for apply for your project.
Interesting. Thank you very much, David. This is very, very helpful
Mhm.
to know. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
All right, David, we have another participant who would like to talk to you. So I'm just unmuting her.
Yes, thank you.
Zifania.
You have to unmute her, please.
I have done it. I think she needs to do it from her end.
Or you can read out the questions. That is okay with you.
Okay, so the question is, David, have you provided any rendering service for established processing unit in Vietnam? If you provide services, then how do you charge for it? And what is the minimum capital required in processing sector?
Mhm. Could you repeat the first part of the question? Because it may not be clear. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Have you provided any rendering service for establishing a processing unit in Vietnam? And if yes, if you provide those services, then how do you charge for it? And the second is, what is the minimum capital required in processing sector?
Yes. Thank you for your question. So in the processing sector here, we manufacturing and processing projects. This is also one, what kind of the sectors that we have been servicing our clients. Notably, we have in Hanam province, we have one packaging, manufacturing company, packaging company in Hanoi. Or in Hanoi, we have one client, which is Three-Point Aviation. They do the manufacture for their aviation here. And in Ho Chi Minh City, we also support some, processing units in there. So first, we do offer the services for manufacturing and processing units. And the type services will also range from, first, if you need us to source for the manufacturing or processing premise, we do offer you the the office sourcing services, number one. Or if you want to look for the industrial zones or parks in Vietnam, so that you can set up your processing unit here, we also can help you. And then next, with all the licensing, permit, services that we can help you to obtain. And also, like what I mentioned in my presentation, we can walk you through from the first phase one, which is market readiness assistance, and to phase 5, when you are very, you are growing your business. So all the services in Vietnam we can offer you in our one-stop solution hub. And for that, for your business, like I said to you, that there's no minimum capital requirement, but depending if you want to, to set up the processing unit in an industrial zone, so you need to invest like just approximately 1 million or more for, whether or not to, make a long-term lease for the land in the industrial zones, or you can do the, the lease for the shed, which is also available in most of the industrial zones. I hope this is clarified for your question.
All right, David. Another one is from Mr. H. Wadwa. I'm enabling him to speak. And the question is there any opportunity for Indian laboratory in having a joint venture with the existing lab of Vietnam for regulatory testing and compliance?
Mm-hmm. There is a real opportunity here. To be frank, we're talking finance, which offer the M&A advisory, M&A transaction services. This is one of Subsidiary. And we are also having, some, target companies in Vietnam. And this is, for this sector, it is also, there's an increasing interest from the, the foreign investors. So the answer here is that is possible in Vietnam. And for that, it would be, if you can send us more details about, your business activities and your requirement, I will be able to give you more, the advice, legal advice in this case. We will be happy to help you. Thank you.
All right. So we have another question from Mr. Sandeep Kartane, but I don't see him here. The question is, any benefits to semiconductor and embedded solutions company? So maybe you can answer them for the other participants.
Mm-hmm, sure. Semiconductors and other embedded solutions is also one of the, what we say, preferred, in investment projects in Vietnam. This is stipulated in our law. And so the Vietnamese government will also provide the incentives for the foreign investors in this sector to give you more, understanding about all of this. I will be able to send you, by email, with more information related, and also guide you how to claim the incentives. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David. And I think the last one is from Mr. Uday Panch, and he wants to ask, is English the language of the law in Vietnam?
Yeah. So in Vietnam, as you already know, that our native language is the Vietnamese, and that is also the language of the law and language of our business. So Vietnamese is prevalent in Vietnam nationwide, although the English is also widely used nationwide. So yeah, for your question, all the laws will be written in the Vietnamese language other than English language. And Viet Thanh Kinh already have the online library for the foreign investors to get access if they become our client. So this is also something that to give you a heads up, and then we can, because all the laws and decrees, ordinance, and other relevant regulations, we have the Vietnamese, we have the English professional translation. So it will be very easy for our investors in this case.
All right, I think we're done with the questions. Is there any more questions someone would like to ask? We'll be happy to address that for you. All right. Thank you all for taking our time for today's session, and we would love to answer any question, any doubt, any clarification. If you have, you can always email it to us. All right, sir. Thank you, David. Thank you, Mr. Bhagat. I think we should wind it up now.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, taking your time and attending the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all the participants.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.